We have Battle for the Planet of the Apes right there in print, the original poster, the final chapter. 5 years, 5 movies. Of course, I didn't talk about Planet of the Apes because I'm really focusing on the novelizations. The novelization for this final book, for this final movie in the series, was by David Gerald. Really quite a number of luminaries for the four novelizations. We started with, well, we were okay. I'm gonna have to go backwards because I already forgot the name of the first guy. A very famous writer of novelizations, especially TV novelizations. But then we had Jerry Pournelle, then we had John Jakes, and now David Gerald, who was fairly young at this time. Most famous, I guess, still for breaking into, for becoming a professional author by selling his first script, which was The Trouble with Tribbles. Then he worked on Star Trek for a few years. He published many novels. He worked on The Next Generation, the first season. Ghost wrote a lot of stuff for Gene Roddenberry. Wrote the Bible for The Next Generation. He was suggested for this job by Judy Lynn Del Rey, who's a famous book editor of science fiction, and at that time she was the editor of Galaxy, according to what I read. And so she suggested him, and he asked, as part of his payment, if he could have a cameo in the movie. So here he is with the director. And there's a better picture of him here. There he is, David Gerald, the author himself. Should have used that as the author photo. Of course, there is no author photo in that movie. In that edition of the book. Let's see. I'm trying to get off this weird page. Okay, so Battle for the Planet of the Apes was released, the film, in 1973. Directed again by J Lee Thompson, who directed the excellent Conquest on the Planet of the Apes, which was my most recent video on this series. Again, this story started out as a screenplay by Paul Dehn. He had written all the screenplays except for the original film. However, he got sick, and it was taken over. The screenwriting job was taken over by John William Corrington and Joyce Hooper Corrington, a married couple who had written a great movie. I almost said Soylent Green, but no. Omega Man, another great Charlton Heston science fiction movie. The three great Charlton Heston SF movies of the late 60s, early 70s. Planet of the Apes, Omega Man, and Soylent Green. All awesome movies of the time, even though not necessarily the most faithful adaptations of any of the original materials. They're all original material. I don't want to get off on that too much, I guess. Anyway, so there was problems with the script. One of the first problems is that these people, these Corringtons that were hired, had never seen any of the Planet of the Apes movies. It was written based on Paul Dehn's outline. He then gave it a final pass, the script a final pass. According to him, he wrote 90% of the dialogue in the final shooting script, but he lost it went to arbitration. He was given story credit, but he wanted co-screenwriting credit, which he did not get. He he altered the ending, the code at the ending, which in a way that the other writers thought was ridiculously corny and stupid, and it turned their stomachs when they saw it. It is not a good movie in any sense. It is a huge disappointment to me. It's worse than I remembered. I watched it when I was a kid. I remember thinking it was just nothing. It's literally shot like a TV movie. It is so low budget, and it's supposed to be this big battle. And one of the advantages of the book is that David Gerald was able to retain the scope of what it was supposed to be, of just these it's this big battle between the mutants. They're not really mutants, but I guess we're supposed to pretend they are. There's a lot about this movie that makes no sense at all. But there's like in Beneath the Planet of the Apes again. We have a city of mutants that's 5 minute walk away from the city of apes that they haven't explored and no one knows about, and it's all irradiated. But there's about 30 mutants in the final battle, against the town of apes. The apes and the humans live together in perfect harmony. It's almost like a hippie commune. The humans that live with the apes are very passive, and thinking about pausing for that motor noise. Sounds like a generator or something. Okay, I'm inside now. The hell with that. I don't know what that noise is and how long it's going to go on. Anyway, so the Apes starts out with a prologue. It's the lawgiver played by John Huston, or at least his voice, where it's 600 years in the future. And they should have kept the whole thing 600 years in the future. But what he's doing is he's telling somebody, the lawgiver's telling the story of Caesar and the final battle for apes versus mutants. And then we go to the village and we see that this is really there's a lot of evidence for a lot of different timelines here, because they really, it's quite sloppy. The humans, the population, it's the same Caesar. He's got a 10-year-old son. He's married to Lisa, the ape from the end of that he was kind of flirting with in the last movie. They're married. Their best human friend, their best human ally is called McDonald. He is the brother of the character McDonald who helped them in the last movie. And maybe there's a 20-year gap in the brother's age or something. I don't know why they made. I guess at another point in the movie, there's a character who is been entrusted as the armorer to keep control of all the weapons, entrusted by Caesar. He's an orangutan entrusted by Caesar to keep control of the weapons. He says he's been doing that job for 27 years. I don't know. This puts Caesar and Lisa in their late 40s, 50s, I guess. It means this guy McDonald looks the same age as the brother in the other one, so who knows how long it's supposed to be. Anyway, apes have survived the nuclear holocaust that humans started, and are living in this small settlement, with humans. They don't treat the humans very well. They don't treat them cruelly, but they're clearly second-class citizens, the humans, and they seem to be very passive about it. I guess they're the hippies that survived. On a particular day, for no particular reason, McDonald asks Caesar if he wants to know what happens to his parents. I don't know what brings us on all of a sudden after all these decades. And he also, Caesar actually introduces McDonald to his wife. So maybe McDonald is new to the settlement and just happens to be the brother. It makes no sense. Why would he not know Caesar's wife Lisa after living in this settlement for all these decades? But unless it's supposed to be a different Lisa, because she does look, it's hard to tell with apes, but with the makeup and everything, she does look very young. No real attempt to show Caesar. Roddy McDowall plays Caesar again. No real attempt to show him as having aged at all since the second movie. But the world's been completely destroyed. He wants to find out about the future history of and whether it's possible to change the history of the Earth that's supposed to end in 3000. So they go to the city. They see a bunch of mutants. They're called mutants. They're the same people from the last movie. They just live underground. The leader, the new governor, was the assistant governor in the last movie. They've all got a little bit of blotchy skin, sores and stuff, but Some reason they just want to live in the ruins of the radioactive city, even though all around them, everywhere else in the film is just wide open forests and hills and greenery and but they want to live until they hear that there's apes. Then they want to go kill the apes. So they get an army together to kill the apes, and it's really the most pathetic army you've ever seen in any movie. This is where it really starts to look like a TV movie. It's really the same level of production values of the TV series that would start in the late, that would run for one season in probably the late 70s, around 76 or 77 or something. I don't know. I'll get to it later. There's another whole other series of novelizations about it I'll read eventually. But it's really, it's a really anticlimactic battle because there's just no, you see this ragtag sort of sub, if you remember the second season or the third season of Walking Dead with the governor, it's basically the same thing, except they're not even as tough as the governor's people. I think this must have been an influence on The Walking Dead because, they put all their soldiers in one school bus. They have one Jeep that there's a big bore gun mounted on the Jeep, and they have machine guns and stuff, but they're sort of limping along, and there's a scene of like half of them die on the way, and they get there. There's only like 30 of them. Meanwhile, there's a whole other plot about the guerrillas wanting to take over from Caesar, and a gorilla named Aldo, played by Chet Atkins. Not Chet Atkins. What's that guy's name? Might be Chet Atkins. No, Chet Atkins is the singer, right? It's heck. Claude Atkins, the 70s actor who was in that series Moving On, which was about truckers. It was kind of based on the trucker CB craze of the 70s. Anyway, he's the head gorilla. He's dumb. The gorillas are really portrayed as dumb and extremely violent. Again, I must point out that gorillas are very nice, passive creatures. They're very powerful, of course, and you don't want to scare them, but they're not vicious like chimpanzees, which have wars, and baboons, which have wars. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. I really did not like the movie at all. It's really a hodgepodge of things. These people are called mutants, which would imply they've mutated after the bomb, but we're alive through the bomb, so they're just suffering from radiation sickness. They haven't mutated. The mutations happen after generations. But nobody really cared that much on this. It kind of fell apart. The director was unhappy with the budget and everything, and the screenwriters had problems with each other, and the director really wanted the original screenwriter to come back and be on set, but he wasn't able to because of his health issues. So I think it's the worst of the movies by far. Kind of wish it didn't exist even. I remember not liking it when it came out, and I remember it's the one movie I remembered hardly anything about. All I remembered is these lame Jeeps and stuff driving up to the ape city, and then a bunch of pyrotechnics going off, exploding stuff. The battle's not really well thought out. The apes win by all pretending to be dead and letting all the humans in the town. There's a big build-up where Aldo wants to get the army together to kill these mutants. And they break into the armory and they steal all the guns. And then they just head for the hills. They don't even try and defend the ape city. And, the other apes, Paul Williams plays an orangutan who's another advisor of Caesar. And they're like, where's Aldo and his men? And he's like, oh, probably on the other side of the valley by now. I guess they're cowards. They're chicken shits. They're up in the hills, it turns out later. They leave the city to be defended by a few other gorillas that are loyal to Caesar, and then all the chimpanzees and all the orangutans, who make pretty short work of the quote unquote mutants, the people from the Forbidden City, because they're just lame losers. And then they fight them off. They retreat. The mutants retreat. Some of the apes want to follow. Caesar says, no, don't let him go, let him go. We'll be at peace now. And as they leave the city and they get a couple miles down the road, then Aldo and the other gorillas attack and kill them all. And so it was very uncoordinated, just a big mess of different plots and different factions, just kind of at war. There's a sad plot about Aldo killing another ape, and so they realize they're not. They start to realize maybe they're not any better than humans after all, because there is a murder, and then Aldo's killed by Caesar in revenge, and justifiably. But they decide. Then they go to. Aldo had penned up all the humans, so they couldn't help fight, but they probably would have been pretty useless anyway, because they are kind of wimpy humans in the city. He penned them all up. He was going to execute them all. Caesar said no. Then he left the city, hung out in the forest until it was convenient to have him just attack the retreating mutants and just kind of wrap up that plot, so that they could say, well, there's no more threat now in the world because we killed all the mutants, and now we're going to live happily ever after. And the humans in the city are like, you got to start treating us equal. We're second-class citizens. You got to treat us like equals. And Caesar says, yep, we'll do that now, and the end. Then it goes back to the lawgiver for a little epilogue, and we see that he's giving the story. He's been telling this story to a group of children, ape children and human children together. Interestingly, the ape children are dressed like normally. The human children are all in filthy rags. Even throughout the rest of the story, the humans are like do not have the sartorial bent of the apes, and they obviously don't have access to the laundry facilities of the village. They're just dirty and grubby. And you see this in the future too, and I wonder if it's a little nod to the original timeline, and that or a subtle little Easter egg to show that yep, the original timeline is definitely what's going to happen, because the lawgiver is telling the story. A little girl asks a question which I can't remember. It's a very cheeky question though, about, so apes really are killers, or something like that. And then the chimpanzee next to her hits her, and then she runs off and he chases after her. And there's clearly, even though the epilogue is set 600 years in the future of the movie, there's clearly still inequality between the apes and the humans. They're still violent with each other. We see that with the kids. The humans are all wearing dirty rags, not as dirty as in the original film, but they're wearing like white tunics. They're all soiled and their hair is all matted and stuff. The humans, so they're still clearly a second-class group in 600 years after the main events of the movie. There's some additional scenes in the book, in the Gerald novel, that were not in the original cut, apparently, according to Wikipedia. But they're in the cut I saw now, where they add some more stuff about the mutants. How the governor of the mutants says, if we don't come back, nuke the apes, and they don't come back, and there's only like 2 mutants left in the city, and they're arguing over whether to nuke the apes or not, and they decide. Then they suddenly recognize for the first time that the nuclear weapon that they have in their city is the Alpha Omega device, the planet killer from beneath the Planet of the Apes, and they go, oh, we better not blow that up because it'll blow up the whole planet. So they decide not to do it, and they decide to leave it as a tribute, a testament to the awesome evil power of weapons. And you can see sort of the beginning of the cult, the death cult, the bomb worshipping cult of beneath the Planet of the Apes. doesn't make sense again because they're not in New York in this movie, so the bomb was in New York, and this city is nothing like New York, and it's just the generic whatever. It was not good. It kind of fell apart. I guess that's why they stopped making them, or whether they plan to stop making them, because definitely by the time they released it, they put it out as the final chapter. It's a very minor entry in the series. You just feel like it's just sort of an adventure in their life. It's not really taking on any big new kind of concept like the others do. Each of the other movies take the concept in a new direction and push it farther. Not this one. So that's it. Disappointment on the Planet of the Apes. And I'm going to do the novelization of the 2001 movie, and maybe I'll talk about novelizations in general, and that we'll see how long it goes. Okay, that was it. I hope you enjoyed the series so far.